I would start with a cheesy joke, but it might not age well. We're talking about cheese today. Everything cheese. I don't even know how much I can emphasize how important cheese is in Italian food.
Is at least the 98% of the Italian food.
Yeah.
Without cheese, we Italians don't live. We produce a lot of cheese.
I think you have more kinds of cheeses than any other country in the world.
For sure, more than France.
Way more than France, surprisingly, much more. A long time ago, years ago, we made a video in Italy. I'll put a link up here where, because we had like every kind of cheese you could imagine, we did a video where we sort of explained the differences of the kind of major types of cheeses in Italy and tried a bunch of them. But we thought that we would revisit the topic because number one, we get a lot of questions about cheese, how to pick the right cheese, to how to store cheese, all this stuff. Also, just in general, in the world at large, we see a lot of misconceptions
about cheese,
about Italian cheeses. And as usual, we see silly marketing things that are tricking people into spending money for things that they shouldn't be spending more money on.
Today we are going to talk about cheeses. They are very well known. They are more or less available also in US because let's be honest, if we had to sit here and talk about Italian cheeses, maybe we needed, I don't know, like a month.
We could have a whole YouTube channel just
about cheeses.
Cheese.
But it's important to understand that those cheeses that we are going to talk about, they are just a few examples of an entire world made out of cheese.
Just the tip of the cheeseburg. Let's start with the thing that is probably gonna be most obvious to most of our audience. Chances are, if you've been around, watched this channel before, you already know this, but it's worth covering because some people need to hear it. Parmigiano-Reggiano versus Parmesan.
What here we need to say is that they are two different kinds of cheese.
I think a lot of people, when they hear, say they read an Italian recipe or a pasta grana recipe and they see a recipe that calls for Parmigiano-Reggiano, I think people think that that's just like the Italian word for Parmesan and that they're interchangeable. No.
Now, it's also real that Parmesan has something to do with Parmigiano-Reggiano.
Yeah. In theory, they're the same broad category of cheese, but Parmigiano-Reggiano refers to a very specific cheese that comes from a very specific place, made with very specific cow milk, processed in a very specific way.
To have a very specific result.
Yes, whereas Parmesan is a much sort of broader category, and it doesn't mean that Parmesan can't be good. For example, Ava and I were earlier this year at the Fancy Food Show in Las Vegas, and they had a whole section of the place that was just cheeses. We didn't leave that part. We mostly stayed there.
A small piece of paradise.
It was amazing. And we were just trying cheeses from all over the world. And one of the best cheeses we had that day was a Parmesan. I think I have a picture of it. I'll throw it up. It was fantastic. The problem with Parmesan is that it's rare to find one that is really that high quality, and it can range from, oh, it's good, to it's like cheese flavored powder that I'm pretty sure is not real cheese.
Classic. When you eat and you don't understand what you're eating because it doesn't have any flavor, any taste, nothing. And sometimes it also doesn't melt properly.
That's another thing too, especially in those powdered ones, they put these anti-caking agents so it doesn't, in general, if you see a recipe and it calls for Parmigiano-Reggiano, look for Parmigiano-Reggiano. And it's real easy because it will have stamped on the rind, it will say Parmigiano-Reggiano. It's not allowed to say Parmigiano-Reggiano unless it's Parmigiano-Reggiano. Another thing that I think a lot of people think, I definitely thought this. A lot of people think that Parmigiano is just for cooking. like it's just for grating into food or melting on top of something.
That is a huge mistake because Parmigiano-Reggiano is a wonderful cheese that you can serve on its own. Personally, I love all the cheeses of the world because I'm a cheese lover. But still now, I think that a very good aged Parmigiano-Reggiano is the best cheese in the world. Actually, if you have a very good piece of Parmigiano-Reggiano, you don't use it for cooking. You skip to other cheeses close to the Parmigiano because you want to enjoy that piece of Parmigiano.
Yeah.
You're not so crazy that you grate the Parmigiano into the lasagna.
If you have a really aged cheese, like a 72-month Parmigiano, you're not gonna grate that on top of pasta.
Absolutely
you're
not.
Gonna
This is a
eat
crime.
It. Yeah.
Parmigiano has different stage of aging. So usually what we use for cooking, at least in Italy, is a very young Parmigiano-Reggiano, which means 12, 25, 24 months. But when we start to go 30, 40, 48, 60, 72, actually we use that Parmigiano just for eating.
When you start getting to like 72-month Parmigiano, it's really crumbly and it has these little sort of salty pockets in it, and that's when you really want to be able to appreciate the texture, and it has an amazing flavor. Not that your food will be bad if you cook with it, like your food, but you're probably not going to taste the...
You're wasting so much money just to put this in your lasagna that actually you can have the same result with less money but the same quality.
Speaking though about cooking cheeses, let's talk about Grana Padano. This is a less common cheese called Grana Padano, but you're starting to see it, we're starting to see it more in the US, especially in specialty markets. You'll see it on Italy and stuff.
Yes, because Grana Padano is the sponsor of Bastianich family. That's why you start to find more Grana Padano.
In many cases, we're seeing Grana treated like it's a unique cheese and something that is better than Parmigiano in some cases. Like we've seen recipes or videos or something where someone will be like, I prefer using Grana Padano for this recipe instead of Parmigiano, which you will never hear anyone ever say in Italy. We've seen it be much more expensive than Parmigiano. It's like, especially I think I saw it on Italy, it was like more expensive than Parmigiano.
I told you, it's the sponsor of the Bastianich family.
And the reason that this is funny to us is because Grana Padano is like the Parmesan of Italy.
More or less.
It's like the same type of cheese as Parmigiano.
Yes, because the Parmigiano, okay, here the kind of cheese is Grana. Now, Grana Padano is this cheese that is made in a much bigger space. It's like I'm talking about Lombardia, Emilia-Romagna.
Bigger geographic area.
Absolutely. Then the top quality of this Grana cheese is the Parmigiano-Reggiano. It is made in not in a big region, but just in the province of Modena, Reggio Emilia, and some part of Bologna.
Grana is the broad category of this type of cheese. Parmigiano is a specific designation for like the top quality of Grana. So they're both the same style of cheese, but Grana Padano is a less strictly sort of regulated, in general, lower quality version of that cheese.
Is a cheese that wants to be Parmigiano, but it can't be Parmigiano.
Yeah. Which is why you'll never have like an Italian cook be like, I prefer Grana Padano over Parmigiano. It's like no one would ever say that because Parmigiano is just like a better version of Grana Padano. I suppose in theory, if you found like a really good Grana Padano that was like 72 months
No, but
aged.
it's very good.
No, it's very good cheese.
A very good cheese.
It could be better than like a 12-month
A
Parmigiano. But if
Parmigiano-Reggiano.
you're comparing like the similar, actual similar characteristics, a Parmigiano is just going to be better.
In Italy, because we have available both of those, usually what you do is you go and buy a Grana Padano for cooking and you go and buy a Parmigiano for eating.
And the reason you do that in Italy is simply to save money. You're like, okay, I'm cooking with this cheese. I'm probably not going to taste the subtleties of the cheese
umami
quite as
flavor
much.
of the
So you
Parmigiano.
settle for Grana Padano, which is still a very good cheese, similar style, and you save the Parmigiano for eating. What we found ironic here is that it's the opposite, because usually here we're seeing Grana Padano sold as like this special thing and more expensive than a piece of Parmigiano, in which case it's like, just don't buy it. Like, why would
marketing.
you? If the Parmigiano is cheaper, get that. All right, maybe we should move on from Parmigiano to another important Italian cheese, Pecorino, or perhaps more specifically, Pecorino Romano.
Also here.
Yeah, we kind of need to explain that.
See, now, the word pecorino means sheep cheese,
That's all it means. It just means sheep cheese.
which means that cheese called pecorino is made with sheep milk. You can find pecorino cheeses in Italy from the north to the south of Italy. We have I don't know how many hundreds of different kind of pecorino. So you can find pecorino in Toscana, pecorino in Liguria, pecorino in Emilia-Romagna, in Abruzzo, in Calabria, in Sicilia. So there isn't just one pecorino. Here in America, the most famous is pecorino romano.
Yeah, I think that's what everyone thinks of. And even in our recipes or in our videos, we'll say use Parmigiano or Pecorino, and what we mean is Pecorino Romano, because that's essentially what there is here.
Now I'm going to say something that maybe a lot of people will be upset with me, but I don't care. Why we use for cooking pecorino romano? Because in between all the pecorino in Italy, he is the
Yeah.
Because when you have a very good aged pecorino in a cave or under the grapes, or I don't know, under the soil with the truffle, you don't use that pecorino to cook, you just enjoy it. So the pecorino romano, which is a medium cheese, we use also for cooking.
It's like the Grana Padano of Pecorino.
See, and also because the pecorino romano is a very salty cheese.
Yeah, it's a good seasoning cheese, like Parmigiano. It brings out flavor, it adds salt, but the interesting thing about seasoning food with cheese is that you can't over-salt it accidentally. If you see Italian recipes that call for grated cheese, it's usually going to be one or two of those, and they're used similarly, but just with different flavors. So Parmigiano is going to be kind of nuttier, a little bit more subtle. Pecorino is going to be saltier, a little stronger.
You can decide based on your taste if you want to use pecorino or Parmigiano. Then clearly there are some dishes that if you skip or if you change, they will change a little bit the taste. I'm thinking about the classical Roman plates of pasta like matriciana, carbonara, cacio e pepe.
Yeah, they call for pecorino.
For pecorino romano.
You want that
understand
strong taste. Well, there's also, if someone is trying to replicate Italian recipes at home, one way, if they want to do it more sort of in line with what's traditional, whatever, there is one pretty easy way to figure out which one you might want to lean towards to, and that is the geography of where the dish is from, right?
In the north of Italy, you find much more cows. While
They have flat land.
While from, let's say, Tuscany to the south, you find more sheep than cows. So, if you're going to make a southern recipe, the 80% of the time go for pecorino because that is the one that is more available. In the north is the opposite. The 80% of the time go and choose for cow milk cheese because this is what they make traditionally.
But yeah, I think it is important to know that pecorino just means sheep cheese. And so that could mean a cheese that isn't even a gratable cheese. It could be a soft cheese. It could be, it's just a very general term for a sheep cheese. And actually that reminds me of, Ava and I were in San Diego not too long ago, and we went into this Italian market. Nice little place, but we went in and saw some pecorino cheese that we wanted to try.
It was from Tuscany.
And so I asked the one behind the counter, I'm like, hey, can I get a piece of that pecorino? And she looks at it, she goes, oh, I don't think that's pecorino, that's sheep's cheese. Well, and Ava's mom was with us, and Ava was trying to explain to her mom what the person behind the counter had said, but you can't even translate it because the way it translates into Italian is,
Pecorino.
That's not pecorino, it's pecorino, because it's the same, means the same thing. Before we move on to some other types of cheeses, I feel like while we're talking about the harder cheeses like Parmigiano and Pecorino Romano, it's a good time to answer a very frequent question that we get, or category of questions, which is about storing cheese. People will write us all the time, and maybe they bought like a really big piece of Parmigiano-Reggiano, or maybe they went to Italy and they bought a piece there and they want to bring it back home, and they ask some kind of question about like, how do you store the Parmigiano or the cheese, whatever it is, and people getting quite worried that it will go bad if they have to transport it, or it'll be out of the fridge for a few days, or that it will go bad in their fridge if they don't, do something special with it. I always have to point out that the cheese you just bought was aged in an open room
At least for 2 years.
at room temperature for at least 12 months.
That is good.
But up to like 4 years, possibly, it's gonna be fine.
He can stay 2 days out
Of the
your
fridge.
fridge.
It's gonna
Absolutely.
be fine.
If it's a very hot day, he can, as we say in Italy, trasudare.
Yeah, it can kind of, it can feel oily, it can get sort of oily,
but this
but it's
doesn't
not
mean that it's going to be bad.
Yeah.
It means that the perfect
kind of sweating.
The perfect temperature should be the temperature where they age the cheese. Now, I know that we don't have at home this perfect temperature, but 2 days outside of the fridge, 3 days outside of the fridge, it can stay without any problem.
And storing in the fridge is equally very simple. It's like, we go to Italy and we buy
Kilos.
like a 6-month supply of Parmigiano, and Pecorino, which for us is a lot of cheese. We go through a lot of cheese. So we have tons and tons of chunks of Parmigiano. And so if we're keeping one that we know is gonna, we're maybe not gonna use it for several months, we will vacuum seal it just to be safe and keep it in the fridge. But if you have a chunk of Parmigiano, even if you don't eat a lot of it every day, you can just keep it in like a Ziploc bag in the fridge. It's fine. The worst thing that can happen if you say have a hunk of cheese in like a Ziploc bag in your fridge, if it's like humid or kind of damp in your fridge or something, is you can get some mold on the cheese. It's fine, you just scrape it off.
Just clean it.
It's all good. It's cheese. Lots of cheeses are intentionally moldy. Let's not forget.
Gorgonzola.
Yeah, just scrape the parts off that are, and you're fine. All right, we've talked about some cow cheese.
Parmigiano, Grana Padano,
We've talked about pecorino, sheep cheese.
Pecorino.
I have one that I want to talk about. Not really because I have anything that much of a revelation to say about it, but it grinds my gears and I need to get it off my chest. And that is goat cheese. Italy, especially in southern Italy, as Ava said, they have a lot of sheep, they have a lot of goats. And one of the things that I've fallen in love with the most in Italy are goat cheeses. And it bothers me that I don't know what it's like in other countries, but here in America, we have plenty of goat cheese, but it's only one kind, which is the soft spreadable chèvre style cheese. which is a good cheese, don't get me wrong, but I feel like most people don't realize that there's this whole world of goat cheeses. Hard cheeses, like ones that you can grate, like a Pecorino or a Parmigiano, or goat ricotta, even goat mozzarella. You can have goat everything. All the styles of cheeses that you can have with cow or sheep or whatever, you can have with goat. And they're so amazing, and it bothers me so much that there's nothing here.
When we bring our friends who comes to the week in the sun, to the farm where all the cheese he has is goat cheese, they just fall in love.
Speaking of which, that brings me into another cheese, or is it? It reminds me of this because one of my favorite goat cheeses is goat ricotta.
Which isn't cheese.
Exactly. Yeah, we should talk about ricotta briefly. We've talked about it a lot on the channel before, but it is worth mentioning again while we're here talking about cheeses. And yeah, the first thing is that ricotta is not cheese.
It's a product of the milk and is made after the process of the cheese making ended.
Yeah.
You make the ricotta with the leftover way of the cheese making process.
Yeah. In order to make ricotta, you first make cheese and then you recook ricotta the whey, and then you get ricotta. We made a video where we made goat ricotta. Put a link up here. Super, super amazing. And another thing worth touching on is the very bad news that I have to give everyone, at least in America. I don't know about other countries. I'm sorry, you can't find ricotta here. You can't. Lots of people have written us and been like, oh, but my local Italian market in Arthur Avenue makes fresh ricotta every morning. No, they don't. They don't. We've been there. Look at the ingredients. If you see like citric acid or vinegar or cream or any of this stuff, it's not real ricotta. I'm sorry, I wish that that wasn't the case. And I wish that we had better news, because if you go watch our video making ricotta, it's not like the easiest thing in the world. And really you do need to find goat or sheep milk.
In Sicily, they will never fill your cannoli with a cow ricotta.
Yeah.
It's or sheep or goat. The pastiera napoletana is not made with cow ricotta. It's sheep or goat, because those are the best ones.
So yeah, unfortunately, we wish that this weren't the case, but we have gone all over this country and always are on the lookout for real ricotta and not once have found one. Maybe it's possible. If you have some little place that you know about, let us know. We would love to know. That being said, if you're looking for ricotta and you want something that's better than what you'll just buy in a store, even though it's not real ricotta, if you want something that's at least edible and better, if you follow, you know, there are lots of recipes online where you make ricotta by using like lemon juice or vinegar or something, which basically just curdles milk. That's not how real ricotta is made at all, but it will definitely be better than like a tub of Bel Gioioso or whatever, Galbani that you get at the store.
The first time that I tried this ricotta Galbani, when I was an innocent girl coming from the first time in US, I saw, wow, Galbani, it's Italian, let's go and buy ricotta. And I tried. I said, well, what they put inside here? But
if you do one of those recipes that uses lemon juice or something, at least it will be better. Speaking of soft, fresh cheeses, because ricotta's not a cheese, that's my poor segue, into mozzarella.
It's another big and huge chapter.
Yeah, with mozzarella, you'll also find a lot of recipes that are like quick and easy mozzarella, and it's made by curdling milk with lemon juice or vinegar, some other acid. That is not how mozzarella is made. Mozzarella is made with a starter culture. Every time they make cheese, they keep some of it from the last batch.
A sort of sourdough.
Yeah, it's kind of like sourdough. It lives forever, and they've been like generation after generation making this. They don't just curdle milk with, anyway. But we should talk about actually what mozzarella is, because it isn't what people think it is.
Yes, because actually mozzarella, the word mozzarella, is referred to what you call buffalo mozzarella. Now, in Italy we have mozzarella and Fior di Latte, where Fior di Latte actually is the cow mozzarella, just mozzarella is the buffalo mozzarella. Now, it's also real that in Italy, from the north to the south, so sometimes we use the word mozzarella to actually talk about also the cow one.
And we're just as guilty of that. Like, if we're doing a recipe, we just say use mozzarella because that's what most people think of it. Yeah, but mozzarella is buffalo milk, Fior di Latte is cow milk.
Now, what you find in your beloved Napolitan pizza margherita, is not mozzarella, but is a Fior di Latte. Because usually the buffalo mozzarella you don't cook because it's so good, so amazing by itself that when you are so lucky to have it, you eat it fresh.
Yeah, traditional Neapolitan pizza chefs often just refuse to use buffalo mozzarella on their pizza, partly because it feels like a waste of this amazing cheese that is just so delicious to eat by itself, and also partly because it's much more wet than Fior di Latte, and it can be too wet and soggy on the pizza. More and more people, tourists, myself included, I fully admit this and I own it, love buffalo mozzarella on pizza. I am not ashamed to say it. And so you'll see more and more pizza chefs doing pizza with buffalo mozzarella. But if you want the traditional Neapolitan pizza, they would never put buffalo mozzarella on a pizza.
I don't go in a pizzeria wherever in the world and ask for mozzarella di bufala. I don't.
I definitely do. For me, life is too short to not always be eating buffalo mozzarella anytime I can. So even if I'm eating a pizza, I'm like, put that on there.
But you can order the mozzarella close to your pizza. So before you
I do
enter
that
the pizza,
too. It's both.
By the way, it depends from your taste. It's like, it's not that is bad, but you should know that it's not the traditional one. Don't be fooled by people. Oh, I made the real margherita pizza with buffalo mozzarella. No.
Or if you like go to Naples and you order a pizza with buffalo mozzarella and you're like, why is my pizza wet and soggy? That's why. I don't mind. You might, though. If you buy buffalo mozzarella in Italy, usually you buy it at the place where they make it. It's much more of kind of a local thing. Like people, if they're driving through Campania, will stop at these little cheese makers and they'll get a styrofoam thing that's holding there and they'll like bring it home and eat it, you know.
And everyone is so happy to
it's awesome.
to have that box.
Yeah, you don't really you can find it just in a normal grocery store, but you know it's not gonna be like as fresh and as good as it should be.
The best mozzarella you eat when it was made in the morning. So you make in the morning and you eat for lunch, for dinner. Already the day after, it changes the taste.
Totally changes.
The real one, when you try, is just a waterfall of milk. It has that flavor, consistency. It's so good that you need to come to Italy.
On the pasta grammar tour, sometimes we go to a place where they make, it's called zizzona di Battipaglia, and it's a big buffalo mozzarella this big, and you just cut big slices of it like a steak, and it's just All right, now I'm hungry.
Me too, Harper. Me too. Also because we are talking about cheese. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we've covered the most popular, most used Italian cheeses: Parmigiano-Reggiano, Grana Padano, Pecorino, Ricotta, Mozzarella. Those are the good, that's the foundation right there.
Foundation, this is just the 0.0000002% of the Italian cheese. For all the rest, let us know if you want more episodes about Italian cheeses, and we are keeping going with this.
We'll be in Italy soon, so we could theoretically get some much more rare and niche cheeses. Let us know.
We can travel for you to go and try cheeses, don't worry.
Let us know if you'd like to see some deeper dives into more rare cheeses. Before we go, a quick shout out to a pasta grammarian who made a beautiful plate of fresh tagliatelle pasta, ragu alla bolognese,
and a ton of Parmigiano
Parmigiano on top.
Perfect. Very good job.
Looks really good. Well done.
When people ask how much cheese I should use, my answer is always how much you have in the fridge.
All right, guys, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Ciao.
Ciao.